What are government budget constraints? Have you ever wondered how governments decide how much money they can spend? Government budget constraints are the limits that guide these decisions. They determine how much a government can spend based on its income, debt capacity, and the overall economic environment. These constraints are like financial boundaries that help maintain fiscal discipline and economic stability. At the core, a government cannot keep spending more than it earns without facing serious consequences. If a government consistently spends beyond its means, it has to borrow money to cover the gap. This borrowing increases the national debt, which can become a burden for future generations. The ability to borrow is influenced by factors such as market confidence, interest rates, and legal debt limits. When these limits are reached, the government must either cut spending, raise taxes, or risk financial instability. From a conservative viewpoint, especially among Republicans, these budget constraints are vital for ensuring fiscal responsibility and promoting economic growth. They argue that limiting government spending helps prevent excessive debt accumulation. This, in turn, protects economic freedom and encourages a thriving private sector. Republicans typically advocate for a smaller government role in the economy, favoring deregulation and tax policies that stimulate growth without expanding government programs. Budget constraints are seen as necessary checks against wasteful spending and unchecked government expansion. By adhering to these limits, governments are encouraged to use taxpayer dollars efficiently. This means prioritizing essential services while cutting back on less critical programs. For instance, many Republicans support reforms that reduce mandatory spending on entitlement programs and are cautious about increasing discretionary spending without clear offsets. In practical terms, these budget constraints shape Republican fiscal policy goals. They often advocate for spending cuts or limits on spending growth to control the size of government. Additionally, they link tax policy to spending restraint, aiming to avoid increasing the deficit through tax cuts that are not matched with spending reductions. Many Republicans also oppose new taxes, believing that lowering tax burdens can spur economic growth, which may increase government revenues without raising tax rates. Moreover, Republicans emphasize the importance of balanced budgets or sustainable debt levels. This approach helps maintain market confidence and prevents economic instability. Ignoring budget constraints can lead to fiscal crises and political gridlock, which can harm economic prospects and the credibility of the party. In summary, government budget constraints are the financial limits that requiring governments to balance their spending with their revenues and borrowing capacity. For Republicans, respecting these constraints is essential for fiscal responsibility, economic growth, and preserving individual freedoms. This perspective supports policies aimed at reducing government spending, controlling debt, and encouraging economic activity within the framework of these budgetary limits.